Jim Carrey almost walked away from one of the biggest movies of his career, not because he didn't like the script, not because he didn't believe in the character, but because every single morning, before he even delivered one line, he had to survive something most actors would never agree to. And the strange part is, almost nobody watching the movie had any idea. When people think of how The Grinch Stole Christmas, they remember the laugh, the crooked smile, the hilarious expressions. They remember Christmas nostalgia. What they don't remember is the man trapped underneath all of it. And now, with people once again talking about Jim Carrey possibly returning to The Grinch after years of saying he was stepping away from acting, there's one question worth asking. Why would anyone even consider going back to a role that pushed them that far? To answer that, we have to go back to a time when Jim Carrey wasn't just a movie star. He was the movie star. By the end of the 90s, everything he touched seemed to turn into a hit. Ace Ventura, The Mask, Liar Liar, The Truman Show. Audiences couldn't get enough of him because he had something almost impossible to imitate. He could make people laugh without saying a word. One look, one movement, one expression, that was enough. So when Hollywood decided to bring Dr. Seuss, the beloved Grinch, to life, there really wasn't another obvious choice. They needed someone who could disappear into the character while somehow making the green creature with a heart full of bitterness feel entertaining, even lovable. Jim Carrey accepted the challenge. What he didn't fully realize was that becoming the Grinch wasn't about acting. It started long before the cameras rolled. Every filming day began in a makeup chair, not for 30 minutes, not for an hour, for hours. Layer after layer of prosthetics covered his face. Green makeup was carefully applied. Individual hairs were attached. Contact lenses made seeing even more difficult. Even simple things like blinking or moving naturally became harder. By the time filming actually began, most people would already have been exhausted. And yet, Jim still had to perform with the same explosive energy audiences expected from him. Think about that for a second. Every jump, every exaggerated grin, every sarcastic smile, every burst of laughter, he wasn't doing it with a free face. He was forcing emotion through thick layers of makeup that resisted almost every movement. That's why the performance feels so incredible when you watch it today. You never notice the struggle, you only notice the character. But behind the scenes, the experience was becoming much harder than people realized. Years later, Jim Carrey, the audience never saw any of this. When we laugh at the Grinch dancing through Whoville or making ridiculous faces, we're seeing a performance that almost hides its own difficulty. That's what great acting does. It makes impossible things look effortless. But every production has a breaking point, a moment where someone quietly wonders, can I really keep doing this? For Jim Carrey, that moment came much closer than fans ever knew, because the physical discomfort wasn't the only challenge waiting for him. There was another problem developing behind the scenes, one that had nothing to do with makeup, costumes, or cameras. It threatened the production in a completely different way, and when it happened, people around Jim began to wonder whether finishing the movie would even be possible. And that's where this story takes an unexpected turn, because the hours spent inside the makeup were unlike anything he had ever experienced before. Most actors prepare for a role by learning lines. Jim Carrey had to prepare just to get through the transformation. And then, after all that, he still had to make millions of people laugh. When How the Grinch Stole Christmas finally reached the theaters in 2000, audiences embraced it. The film became a huge commercial success and has remained a Christmas tradition for families around the world. Ironically, the very performance that demanded so much from Jim became one of the performances that people celebrate the most. That's often how great arts work. The audience remembers the magic, the artist remembers the sacrifice. As the years passed, Jim continued acting in memorable films, but he returned to play Dr. Robotnik in the Sonic the Hedgehog films, reminding audiences that when the right role comes along, Jim Carrey can still command the screen like few others. And recently, another familiar name started appearing in headlines, The Grinch. Reports began circulating that Universal was exploring another Grinch project, with speculation about whether Jim could return to the role. While nothing has been officially confirmed, The possibility alone sparked excitement across the internet. Think about how surprising that is. After everything he went through, after describing just how difficult the experience had been, people are once again imagining him as the Grinch. Maybe that's because some performances become bigger than the struggle behind them, or maybe it's because certain characters only feel complete when one actor plays them. When Jim Carrey ever puts on that green makeup again remains to be seen. But one thing is already certain. The Grinch wasn't just another Christmas movie. It became a story about commitment, about endurance, about an actor who gave audiences a performance so convincing that they never realized what it truly cost to create. Sometimes the greatest performance isn't the one you see. It's the battle the audience never knew was happening.